They ruled millions of acres. Farmers swore by them, dealerships couldn't keep them in stock. Then, almost overnight, they vanished, killed by mergers, bankruptcy, and a brutal farm crisis that wiped out entire brands. These machines once fed nations, broke ground on untouched land, and defined what farming meant for generations. Today, most people have never even heard their names. Here are 10 forgotten tractors that once dominated agriculture. Number 1. Oliver, 88, 1947-1954. Before John Deere and Case IH became household names, Oliver Farm Equipment Company was one of the most respected tractor manufacturers in America. The Oliver 88, introduced in 1947, became the backbone of Midwestern farming almost immediately after its release. Powered by a 231 cubic inch 6-cylinder gasoline engine, producing around 38 horsepower at the drawbar. The Oliver 88 was designed for serious row crop work. It featured a live hydraulic system, a major innovation at the time, which allowed operators to control implements independently of the tractor's forward motion. This was a genuine breakthrough in the late 1940s, and farmers who used it never wanted to go back. The Oliver 88 was also available in diesel and LP gas versions, making it versatile across different fuel markets. Its distinctive green and cream paint scheme became iconic across the corn and soybean belt. Nebraska tractor tests confirmed the 88's performance credentials, giving farmers reliable, independent data to justify the purchase. Oliver was eventually acquired by White Motor Corporation in 1960, and over the following decades the brand was diluted, merged, and finally discontinued. By the 1990s, Oliver tractors had completely vanished from production. Today, restored Oliver 88s are prized collector items, but an entire generation of modern farmers has never heard the name. Number 2. Minneapolis-Moline UDLX Comfortractor. In 1938, Minneapolis-Moline introduced what might be the most ambitious tractor ever built, a machine so far ahead of its time that the market completely rejected it. The UDLX Comfortractor was a fully enclosed car-like tractor with a heated cab, radio, passenger seat, and a top road speed of 40 miles per hour. Minneapolis-Moline engineers genuinely believed that farmers deserved the same comfort as automobile owners. The Comfortractor featured a streamlined steel cab with a heater, windshield wipers, and enough room for 2 people. The idea was that a farmer could drive it to town on Saturday night, then use it in the fields Monday morning. The problem was the price. At $2,155 in 1938, more than a mid-range automobile, very few farmers could justify the cost during the tail end of the Great Depression. Only around 150 UDLX units were ever sold before production ended. Today, surviving examples are among the most valuable antique tractors in the world, with well-preserved units selling for over $100,000 at auction. Minneapolis-Moline itself survived into the 1970s before being absorbed into the White Farm Equipment conglomerate, and the UDLX remains a remarkable footnote in agricultural engineering history. Number 3. Hart-Parr 30-15. Most people know that tractors exist, but few know who invented them. The answer is Hart-Parr Company of Charles City, Iowa. Charles Hart and Charles Parr didn't just build early farm engines. They coined the word tractor itself, first using the term in 1906 to distinguish their self-propelled machines from stationary steam engines. The Hart-Parr 3060, introduced in 1907, was one of the most powerful agricultural machines of its era. It weighed approximately 14,000 pounds and was powered by a massive 2-cylinder horizontal engine that produced 30 horsepower at the drawbar and 60 horsepower on the belt, hence its designation. It burned kerosene rather than gasoline, which was far cheaper and more widely available for farmers of the period. These machines broke the virgin prairies of the American Great Plains and Canadian West, turning unbroken sod into productive cropland at a scale impossible with horse teams. A single Hart-Parr 30-60 could do the work of dozens of horses. Hart-Parr merged with 3 other companies in 1929 to form Oliver Farm Equipment, and the Hart-Parr name was phased out. The foundational role this company played in creating the tractor industry has been largely forgotten, overshadowed by brands that came later with better marketing. Number 4. Allis-Chalmers WD45 1953-1957. Allis-Chalmers was once one of the big names in American agriculture. At its peak in the 1950s, the Milwaukee-based company was a genuine rival to John Deere and International Harvester. The WD45, produced from 1953 to 1957, was the machine that represented the brand at its best. The WD45 introduced power crater technology, a specially designed combustion chamber that significantly improved fuel efficiency and power output. Available in gasoline, diesel, and LP gas configurations, the diesel version produced around 43 horsepower at the PTO, impressive for a row crop tractor of that era. It also featured traction booster, a hydraulic system that transferred implement weight onto the rear tires to improve traction on soft or wet ground. Allis-Chalmers sold over 83,000 WD45 units during its production run, making it one of the most commercially successful tractors the company ever built. The distinctive Persian orange paint scheme made AC tractors immediately recognizable from a distance. The 1980s farm crisis devastated Allis-Chalmers. The company sold its agricultural division to Deutz AG of Germany in 1985, forming Deutz Allis, and the original AC brand was effectively dead. The Allis-Chalmers name lingered on equipment for a few more years, but by the early 1990s, it had vanished entirely from dealership floors. Number 5. Case Vac. J.I. Case Company of Racine, Wisconsin, has a legitimate claim to being the oldest agricultural machinery manufacturer in continuous American history, founded in 1842. But within the Case lineup, one tractor stands out as particularly significant, yet overlooked today, the Model VAC. Introduced in 1942 and produced through 1955, the VAC was a tricycle configuration row crop tractor that became extraordinarily popular with vegetable and cotton farmers across the American South and Southwest. Its offset engine positioning gave the operator an unobstructed view of the row being cultivated, a feature that sounds simple but was practically transformative for precision row work. The VAC ran on a 124 cubic inch four-cylinder engine and was rated at approximately 16 drawbar horsepower. This made it a lightweight, highly maneuverable machine ideally suited to smaller farm operations and intensive cultivation. Thousands were sold to small family farms across the South where cotton was still king in the post-war period. Case eventually merged with International Harvester in 1985 to form Case IH, and many of the older Case models faded from collective memory. The VAC, which served a generation of farmers through some of the most demanding cultivation conditions imaginable, is now known mainly to serious antique tractor enthusiasts. Number 6. Cockshutt 30, 1946-1957. Americans rarely hear about Cockshutt farm equipment, but in Canada, and particularly in the prairie provinces of Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, the Cockshutt 30 was as beloved and familiar as any John Deere. Produced from 1946 to 1957 by Cockshutt Farm Equipment of Brantford, Ontario, the Model 30 was a genuine engineering milestone. It was one of the very first tractors in North America to feature a fully independent power takeoff, meaning the PTO shaft could be engaged and disengaged independently of the tractor's transmission. This allowed operators to run PTO-powered implements at full speed while stopping the tractor's forward motion, which was enormously valuable for operating balers, combines, and threshing machines. The Cockshutt 30 used a Continental-built four-cylinder engine and was Nebraska-tested at roughly 30 drawbar horsepower. Its red and cream paint scheme became a familiar sight across the Canadian grain belt for over a decade. Cockshutt was eventually acquired by White Farm Equipment in 1962. The brand was gradually phased out through the 1970s, and today even many Canadian agricultural historians would struggle to name a single Cockshutt model. The company's pioneering contribution to PTO technology, which every modern tractor relies upon, has been almost completely forgotten. Number 7. Massey-Harris 44, 1947. Before the Massey-Ferguson merger of 1953 created one of the world's best-known tractor brands, there was Massey-Harris, a Canadian company with deep roots in prairie agriculture. The Massey-Harris 44, introduced in 1947, was the defining machine of the post-war Massey-Harris era. The Model 44 was powered by a Continental-supplied four-cylinder engine in its early versions, later transitioning to Massey-Harris's own power plant. In its most powerful diesel configuration, it produced around 44 horsepower at the belt. Available in standard row crop and orchard versions, the 44 was adaptable to an impressive range of farming applications across North America and export markets. What made the 44 particularly competitive was its depth-o-matic hydraulic system, which provided precise implement depth control. This was critical for consistent tillage results, and farmers who tested it against competitors frequently cited hydraulic control as a decisive factor. When Massey-Harris merged with Harry Ferguson's company in 1953, the resulting Massey-Ferguson brand eventually overtook both predecessor identities. The Massey-Harris name was officially retired in the early 1990s. The Model 44, which had sold in enormous numbers and served farms across 3 continents, is now largely a collector's item. Its Massey-Harris origins often overlooked even by fans of the Massey-Ferguson brand that succeeded it. Number 8. Farmall M. Technically, the Farmall M is not entirely forgotten. Serious tractor historians know it well. But among general audiences and even many working farmers today, the scale of the Farmall M's dominance during the 1940s is almost incomprehensible, and that dominance deserves explicit recognition. International Harvester introduced the Farmall M in 1939, and it rapidly became the best-selling tractor in American history for its era. By some estimates, over 288,000 units were produced between 1939 and 1950. During World War II, when manufacturing was constrained and every resource was prioritized for the war effort, the Farmall M kept American agriculture running. It plowed, planted, cultivated, and harvested on farms from Georgia to Oregon. The mill was powered by a 2047.7 cubic inch 4-cylinder engine, producing around 33 drawbar horsepower in its standard gasoline configuration. It was available in distillate and LP gas versions as well. Its tricycle front configuration gave excellent row visibility, and its Farmall fast hitch system for implement attachment was genuinely innovative. International Harvester's tractor division was sold to Tenneco in 1985, forming Case IH, and the legendary Farmall name effectively disappeared from new production for decades. The Farmall M helped feed a nation through depression and war, and most people under 40 have never heard of it. Number 9. Steiger Bearcat, 1969-76. Most large four-wheel drive tractors on the market today trace their conceptual lineage to a company started by 2 brothers in a barn in North Dakota. Douglas and Maurice Steiger built their first tractor in 1957 out of necessity. They needed something powerful enough to work their 4,000-acre operation near Red Lake Falls, Minnesota, and nothing on the market was adequate. The Steiger Bearcat, introduced in 1969, was one of the machines that brought the brand to national attention. The articulated 4-wheel drive design, where the tractor bends in the middle to steer rather than using conventional front axle steering, was ideally suited to the enormous fields and heavy draft work of the northern Great Plains. The Bearcat used a Cummins diesel engine and was capable of pulling heavy tillage equipment across ground that would have stopped conventional 2-wheel drive tractors completely. Steiger tractors were painted a distinctive lime green, and they became cult machines among large-scale grain farmers. The company sold to Tenneco in 1986, and the Steiger name was incorporated into the Case IH lineup. Modern Case IH Steiger tractors still carry the name, but the independent company that pioneered articulated 4-wheel drive agriculture is almost entirely forgotten outside of collector circles. Number 10. Lanz Bulldog, D2206, 1929. The final machine on this list didn't come from America. It came from Mannheim, Germany, and it may be the most technically fascinating tractor ever built for widespread agricultural use. The Lanz Bulldog, produced in various models by Heinrich Lanz AG from the 1920s onward, was powered by a hot-bulb semi-diesel engine, a design so mechanically unusual that modern engineers study it as a curiosity. The D2206 variant, widely produced through the 1930s through 1950s, ran on a single-cylinder 2-stroke hot-bulb engine. Before starting, the operator had to heat the hot bulb at the top of the cylinder with a blowtorch for several minutes to enable ignition. Once running, the engine would burn almost any combustible liquid, crude oil, waste vegetable oil, heating fuel, even used motor oil. In post-war Europe, where refined diesel and gasoline were expensive and scarce, this capability made the Bulldog indispensable. Lanz Bulldogs were exported across Europe, South America, and parts of Asia. The distinctive one-cylinder sound, a slow, heavy thump, became as familiar as the smell of soil in the agricultural regions where they worked. John Deere acquired Heinrich Lanz AG in 1956, and the hot bulb engine technology was phased out in favor of conventional diesel designs. Today, the Lanz Bulldog has a passionate following among European collectors, but it remains almost completely unknown in the North American market. A forgotten giant from a different agricultural tradition entirely. These 10 tractors represent something larger than machinery. They represent the engineers who bet careers on innovative ideas, the companies that rose and fell with the agricultural economy, and the farmers who put their trust in iron and oil to feed their families and their nations. The farm crisis of the 1980s alone wiped out brands that had survived 2 world wars and the Great Depression. Mergers swallowed identities. Marketing budgets determined which names survived in public memory. Every one of these machines worked real land, pulled real loads, and mattered to real people. The fact that most of their names have faded says less about the quality of the tractors than it does about the brutal economics of the industry that built them. If you found this video interesting, there are dozens more forgotten machines with stories just as compelling. Subscribe, and we'll keep digging them up.